What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about the recent Kamaru Usman beef with Mr. Belal Muhammad, saying that Kamaru Usman didn't even know who Belal Muhammad was a couple years ago, and of how that he is coming to take his belt and he can do it anytime he wants. Kamaru Usman has been adamant about fighting Belal Muhammad next over Shavkat Rakhmonov, and he has said countless times over and over and over again that he will destroy Belal Muhammad if he steps in the octagon with him. But before we jump right into the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the UFC content, and please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always notified when UFC content drops. But let's jump right into the video of discussing Kamaru Usman possibly facing Belal Muhammad, when this fight would be, and why the beef is going so deep, because these two individuals were just cordial with one another prior before, but Belal Muhammad says Kamaru Usman doesn't have anything on him, about he's old and washed, but Kamaru Usman says an old dog still knows a couple tricks and is going to get in there and destroy Belal Muhammad when they meet. Okay, so Kamaru Usman went on his podcast, the Pound for Pound show with Henry Cejudo, and he said that Belal Muhammad that he wants to beat Belal Muhammad. He doesn't even know who he is, and when he was champion, that Belal Muhammad didn't matter within the division. And this is Kamaru Usman's quote. Quote Kamaru, "Who the F is that guy? I don't know who this guy was a couple years ago. I don't even remember his name." And I love the remember the name things, because everyone who makes fun of Belal Muhammad says no one can remember the name because that's his nickname, as you all know. Remember the name Belal Muhammad, and truly Belal is one of the most boring fighters inside the UFC. Now, what's funny is he is now the second most boring fighter of that welterweight division, with Leon Edwards taking the #1 slot after that fight at UFC 304. But Kamaru Usman is saying that he is going to go in there and fight Belal Muhammad and take his belt. And this is another Kamaru Usman quote. "If I want that belt, I'm coming to take his belt. At some point, he's going to have to step in there with me, and we're going to settle this. Keep dropping corny, weak diss tracks." That was from Belal Muhammad, who dropped a diss track on Kamaru Usman, which was like this weird country thing. It was actually a complete loss on Belal Muhammad's part. But this fight between the two individuals is heating up a little bit, and having this kind of story, this background news between the two, could possibly thrust Kamaru Usman into that title shot over someone like Shavkat Rakhmonov. What's crazy is that there is a massive possibility that this fight doesn't happen, and that is to the man who I kind of mentioned earlier, that being Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat is either next for the title shot, he's either going to get it, or fight Kamaru Usman for the #1 contender. I think Shavkat beats both of these fighters. Now, that isn't the topic of this episode. It's between Belal and Kamaru, so I only think the only way I think that this fight is going to happen is if Kamaru Usman overjump Shavkat Rakhmonov to take on Belal Muhammad, possibly at UFC 310, 311, some number like that, coming up at the end of 2024 or the start of 2025. Why did these two get in such a personal beef with one another? Which it's not, but it also is. Belal Muhammad is just talking about of how Kamaru Usman was never that good, of how he's the second greatest welterweight of all time, right behind Georges St. Pierre after that Leon Edwards win, which is completely false if you ask me. It goes Georges St. Pierre, who is the greatest welterweight of all time, no dispute. But then right under that is Mr. Kamaru Usman, and I think the biggest thing is that Belal Muhammad thinks he's better than Usman now. Now, the only difference is Usman has 6 title defenses. He's won the belt so many times. He's defended it. He was a very fun fighter during his title reign. And, Belal Muhammad wants to step in there with Kamaru Usman. But this is kind of on that level of John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. I think Kamaru Usman, pound for pound, is a better fighter than Stipe currently. But Kamaru Usman is at the end of his prime. In that Leon Edwards fight, he didn't look that good in that third fight versus Leon. His takedowns weren't that great. He wasn't doing everything needed to win. In that Khamzat Chimaev fight, he was looking better in those second and third rounds. He ultimately lost that fight, though, just because he didn't have enough time to prepare for someone like Khamzat and go out for a 5-round war. Like I've always said, Khamzat is one of the best 3-round fighters just because he can swamp your opponent in the first round, and that means you have to win 2 off of him in the next 2. But Belal Muhammad thinks he can beat Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman's pride is telling him that he can beat Belal Muhammad and that it won't even be a competition. Now, Kamaru Usman says that he had a very savage quote in this where he pretty much just said that I have 6 belts on the wall. I don't need another one, but I want to come take his because he's talking too much. And I think that is a savage mode from Usman, because Kamaru Usman, like he said, he is one of the best welterweights of all time in the UFC organization. He's defended the belt versus some names like Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, Gilbert Burns, some incredible names inside the UFC. He won it off Tyron Woodley, but Kamaru Usman has a lot of belts. We all know that. but he wants another one. He wants to become the greatest of all time. He wants to have a legacy that can't be broken. And yes, he might not overpass Georges St-Pierre, but Kamaru Usman is on that list of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. And that's no debate. Kamaru Usman is one of the best fighters on the planet. Usman's talent is truly special. Now, yes, he might be getting to the end of his career, but he definitely has some more good fights left in him. Yes, his knees are really bad, and he's had some incredible wars inside the UFC. But if he steps in with someone in there like Belal Muhammad, he could 100% beat him. If we're talking Usman, who fought Leon Edwards at UFC 278, now, yes, that's minus the head kick knockout at the end of the round, versus the Belal Muhammad who beat Leon Edwards at UFC 304, I might be taking Kamaru Usman in that fight. The only way Leon Edwards won that round was because he got the takedown in that first round versus Kamaru Usman. But that was just something that I felt like was a great trip from Leon, but he did the exact same thing to Belal Muhammad and actually controlled him more. So I think the Kamaru Usman at UFC 278 would beat Belal Muhammad pretty handily. Now, Belal is a lot different of a fighter now. His gas tank is incredible. Usman's a little older. So how would this fight theoretically go, in my opinion? It is an absolute coin flip because there's a massive question mark on Kamaru Usman. If we see the Usman who fought at 278 and the later rounds of that 294 bout with Khamzat Chimaev, I could 100% see Usman beating Belal Muhammad. But if we see the Usman who fought Leon Edwards at UFC 286, the one that was super adamant to jump back in there with Leon after that head kick knockout, after probably some stress and trauma after that absolutely brutal experience, it was something that truly I don't think we would be able to replicate, because that was a really bad performance from Usman with a lot of different circumstances due to the fear of getting knocked out by that opponent again. So ultimately, I do believe that Belal Muhammad versus Kamaru Usman actually has a very valid chance of occurring. Dana White loves stories. That's one of his favorite things. If he could get some trash talk between Usman and Belal Muhammad, that would be an absolutely amazing thing. The other thing is Kamaru Usman is a bigger name than Shavkat Rakhmonov. Everyone loves Shavkat. Shavkat is one of the most deadly fighters inside the UFC. He's an absolute monster. But Kamaru Usman has been the welterweight champ for years at this point, or the former welterweight champ for a long time. And his reign was incredibly dominant. So putting himself in there with someone like Belal Muhammad would make for an incredible fight where Shavkat would move to the side real quick and then fight him right after. Now, I'm not saying it's correct. I'm not saying I'm advocating for it, but Kamaru Usman versus Belal Muhammad, stemming from all the beef and all the hate coming from one another, could be an incredible fight coming from each other. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comments about Kamaru Usman's comments about Belal Muhammad, saying he didn't know who he was when he was the champion, you should forget the name, and everything like that. I do think it would be a very interesting fight between Kamaru Usman and Belal. I think both fighter actually has a genuine case to win this fight. I think Kamaru Usman has a lot more question marks than Belal Muhammad. Belal was still in his prime, even though these fighters I think are 1 year apart in his age. Belal Muhammad has a lot less miles on the clock than Usman from his pre-wrestling days before the UFC, but Belal Muhammad has the skills to beat someone like Usman, and I think a personal beef between these two, which is going in the direction of being, would be something to fire him up. I think the beef, the trash talk, and everything like that could propel Kamaru Usman to fight Belal Muhammad at the end of 2024 or the early part of 2025, skipping over someone like Shavkat Rakhmonov. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the content, and we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so please help us reach the goal very, very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later.